hear what you are saying, I think, it's obviously not your first choice, but if it was a straight choice between a no-deal Brexit and a people's vote, you would plump for the people's vote.
Well, I think no deal is something that Parliament would assert itself and object to. So
does that mean that a people's vote would be preferable?
I think that a people's vote could be the result of an impasse. So I would ask Nadine...
But is that preferable?
Is it preferable to no deal?
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think no deal will happen. I think that if we can't get a negotiated deal that the Prime Minister brings back through Parliament, then I think that we're in completely uncharted territory, constitutionally, and also because of the different factions going on in Parliament. I think that one of the outcomes you might get is a Norway EEA-style deal instead of no deal, and I know that various colleagues are looking at that. But I do think that it would be ironic indeed if we got a people's vote because the more Brexity people in my party were unable to support the Prime Minister in her negotiated settlement.
Well, let's start with the fact that we had a referendum and the results of the referendum ought to be abided by. But we do need to have an injection of democracy in between the result of the referendum and us going any further. And we've always said that. And what we wanted was a meaningful vote. And Theresa May is simply giving us a devil in the deep blue sea. She's saying, you know, you can either fall off a cliff or get on this bridge to nowhere, and you're going to have to vote on that. That's not a meaningful vote. That's not an injection of democracy. So we say, if you're going to give us that, then, you know, we refuse to play that sort of game. And frankly, if you can't come up with a decent suggestion, then we should have a general election. If we don't have a general election, which we think we should have, then yes, of course, all the options remain on the table, and we would, you know, campaign for there to be a people's vote. But, you know, there are several stages before we get there.
As I suspect you can guess, the reason I'm asking you this is that Jeremy Corbyn, asked by a German newspaper directly, said, we can't stop it. We can't stop Brexit. And there's a lot of people, including Labour Party members, who are desperate to stop Brexit and hope the Labour Party will help them do that, and are therefore very disappointed by what he said.
Well, you have to look at the context of it. You know, he was being asked by a German newspaper, why don't you just stop it? And he was explaining that, as I've just tried to explain, that we had a referendum, that we are Democrats over and above everything else.
But there is...
And that we have to take it. No, go.
They say, if you could stop Brexit, would you? Jeremy Corbyn, we can't stop it. And the reason I ask that is that a lot of your own supporters think the party leadership is a bit complacent, a bit lazy about this whole business, and has decided that under all circumstances Brexit is going ahead, and you shouldn't.
It's really not fair to say that we're lazy about this. I mean, the fact is we're not in power, and we have been trying to keep this government honest throughout. You know, we talked about the importance of being in a customs union. We have talked about the importance of having an agreement with the European Union, a free trade agreement that is a British-style free trade agreement which is based on the rules of the single market. We get all of that. That's the sort of things that we have to do. But, you know, there are some deeply anti-democratic forces out there, and we're not going to be part of it. If we've had a referendum and that is the result, then we ought to proceed on the basis of good faith, and we will do our best to try to deliver a Brexit that's good for the country. Now, we're not in power. So we have an incompetent government who for 2.5 years have not been able to deliver anything, and we're running out of time. And the point is this, is that as an opposition, we then say, you cannot go ahead like this. There must be an injection of democracy.
Is this a process where we might see multiple votes taking place in the House behind us?
Yes, and the number and sequencing of these votes has yet to be determined. It is all rather mysterious. I suspect that the government's going to be voted down. There will be a series of amendments to it. We can't yet say what would pass. There is a good chance that the Parliament will vote to have a people's vote, a referendum. A good chance? What are the odds? There is a good chance. Ultimately, probably 50-50.
Who would put that question
to... May not be at the first attempt, but I think that we will go back to it if the government is not. But who would put that question to Parliament? Because the government would have to decide to, wouldn't they? And the government has said that they don't want a people's vote. Well, if there is an amendment which is passed, then the government would be instructed to conduct one. I mean, that's how it would happen. Or it could be a general election. I think that's less likely, but that's certainly one of the other options. Or a fundamentally different concept of remaining in a customs union and a single market. That will also be promoted. There will be a series of options. Parliament will vote on them. probably then on the basic principle of the meaningful vote, as it's called. It will almost certainly be defeated unless it's substantially amended, and then we'll probably come back to it. This is not going to be over in a day.
And probably for many politicians, the decision will very much depend on whether they think a no-deal Brexit is a likely outcome or something that could happen if they vote this down. Some, even in the Cabinet, have suggested that Parliament would not let a no-deal outcome happen. How would the government or Parliament stop no deal?
Well, that's absolutely right. The whole purpose of the government keeping up this pretense that we can crash out without a deal was part of its negotiating strategy with the European Union. But they've now reached an agreement with the European Union, so it serves no purpose other than to frighten people, and it's costing a lot of money, the preparation. So at some point, MPs, I would certainly be one of them, would want to have this taken off the table. I think a lot of businesses are very apprehensive. They think that somehow we could...
But it is the outcome that would happen.
It's currently the default position,
yes,
but nobody wants it. So it just requires a little bit of political intelligence to get the option removed from the table.
How could there be another default position that didn't involve a deal?
The alternative default position would be remaining where we are.
Okay.
And that, I think, is what will be the position if we're stuck on everything else.
We want to install a radical Labour government capable of transforming this country. And that's what should happen after 2 years of negotiations ending in failure. But if that's not possible, we must have other options. And conference, that must include campaigning for a public vote. It's right that Parliament has the first say. It's right that Parliament has the first say. But if we need to break the impasse, our options must include campaigning for a public vote, and nobody is ruling out Remain as an option.